The silent Pact Ava's simple life as a teacher in the remote mountain village had always been enough. Her days were filled with laughter and lessons, her nights spent penning fantastical tales that no one but her ever read. But when Lukas arrived, his presence was like a gust of winter wind, sharp, unexpected, and carrying whispers of change. Lukas didn't blend into the quiet rhythm of the village. His silence was heavy, his eyes constantly scanning the landscape as if expecting someone or something to appear. The villagers were wary, their superstitions bubbling to the surface. Yet Ava found herself drawn to him, despite the way he dodged her questions and avoided her gaze. One evening, as Ava worked late in the small schoolhouse, Lukas appeared at the door, holding one of her stories. His hand trembled as he pointed to a passage describing a hidden cavern and an ancient symbol carved into its walls. "How do you know about this?" he demanded, his voice laced with something between fear and awe. Ava stared at him, confused. "I made it up," she replied, but Lukas's reaction suggested otherwise. As the days grew colder, Lukas began to confide in Ava, though his words were carefully chosen. He spoke of a pact, a desperate deal made long ago to protect someone he loved. The details were murky, but the weight of his regret was unmistakable. He confessed that the shadows following him weren't just metaphorical. "They're coming," he warned, though he wouldn't say who or what they were. Ava's peaceful village began to feel less safe. Odd things started happening. The church bell tolling at midnight without reason, footprints appearing in the snow that led nowhere, and whispers that seemed to echo in the mountains. The villagers grew restless, blaming Lukas for the disturbances. Ava defended him, even as her own unease grew. One night, Lukas showed Ava an old tattered journal. Inside were sketches of symbols that matched those she'd described in her story. "These are real," he said, his voice breaking. "They've haunted my family for generations." Ava couldn't explain how her fictional tales seemed to align with Lukas's past. It was as if her words were threads pulling at a tapestry she didn't know existed. Their connection deepened as they pieced together the puzzle. Lukas revealed the full truth of his pact. Years ago, he had bargained with an ancient force to save his sister's life. In exchange, he became a vessel for the force's will, doomed to wander and fulfill its demands. The cavern Ava had written about wasn't just a place. It was the source of the force's power, and it called to him. Ava, determined to help Lukas break free, proposed they find the cavern and confront whatever lay within. Lukas resisted, terrified of what they might awaken, but Ava's resolve was unwavering. "We can rewrite this story," she insisted. "We don't have to follow the ending they've written for us." Their journey to the cavern was fraught with peril. The mountain seemed alive, its howling winds carrying faint cries and eerie laughter. Strange symbols appeared on the trees, glowing faintly in the moonlight. At times, Lukas faltered, gripped by an invisible force that tried to pull him back. Ava held his hand tightly, her own fear outweighed by her determination to see this through. When they finally reached the cavern, its entrance was hidden beneath a frozen waterfall. Inside, the air was heavy, as if the mountain itself was holding its breath. The ancient symbol Ava had written about was carved into the walls, pulsating with a faint, otherworldly light. Lukas dropped to his knees, overcome by its presence. The force within the cavern spoke, not in words but in emotions, rage, sorrow, and a hunger that felt endless. It demanded fulfillment of the pact, warning that breaking it would unleash chaos. Ava, trembling, stepped forward. "We reject your pact," she said firmly. "You've taken enough from him." The force laughed, its presence pressing down on them like a storm. "Rewrite your story then," it hissed. "But every story demands a sacrifice." In that moment, Ava understood. To free Lukas, someone else would have to take his place. She looked at him, her heart breaking. "It has to end here," she whispered. Before Lukas could stop her, she pressed her hand to the symbol, offering herself to the force. The cavern erupted in light, the walls shaking as the ancient power unraveled. Lukas screamed her name, pulling her back just as the symbol shattered into pieces. The force dissipated, leaving behind only silence. They stumbled out of the cavern, the first rays of dawn breaking over the mountains. The pact was broken, but its scars remained. Ava's connection to the force had left her changed. she could still feel its whispers in the back of her mind. Lukas, finally free, vowed to stay by her side, no longer running from his past. Back in the village, life slowly returned to normal, though the villagers avoided Ava and Lukas, sensing the lingering aura of their ordeal. Together they began to write a new story, one of healing and hope, though the echoes of the silent pact would forever remain a part of them. As spring melted the snow, Ava and Lukas stood at the edge of the forest, gazing at the distant mountains. Their journey wasn't over, but for the first time, they faced the future together, determined to carve their own path, free from the chains of fate.